Hey guys, and welcome back to ScarletSprites. The last two videos have been spent talking about some really cool hardware, and today really isn't any different. Although this isn't a new product, this is my Resurrected Punisher CPS 1.5 arcade board. To start, I always think it's great when someone is surprised to learn that there was a Punisher arcade game. Now I guess in some locations and regions it may have slipped through the cracks, but this was a pretty big game in the early 90s when Capcom was just killing it in arcades. It's also the start of the partnership between Marvel and Capcom, which you know would lead to some other pretty big titles down the line. The game itself is pretty great looking. It has this almost comic book-like look to it that is even complemented with action word balloons to help remind you of the source content's roots. You can play as either Frank Castle or Nick Fury. Both characters are largely the same in the game, not quite the variety you might expect coming off of something like Final Fight, but this game's style and overall fun factor is where it really shines. The dedicated cabinet for this game is pretty cool too. It's basically almost a first edition Big Blue except in black and has full side art. Because the whole thing is black, the colors of the comic art really pop and make this machine look totally awesome. So up until recently, my main way of playing this title was via the Darksoft CPS 2 multi. And yes, that's correct, there is a modified ROM for this game that allows it to load and play on CPS 2 hardware. So the cool thing for me was that I was able to get this going on my own Big Blue for some beat 'em up action from time to time. I wasn't really looking to buy this title, and it has gotten pretty expensive in recent years. Even outside of eBay, I've seen working boards push $900 or more, and at least one non-working board went for around $600. Still, it's a pretty great game. It's Capcom, it's Marvel, and it's cool CPS 1.5 hardware. So when I saw it come up for auction locally, I decided I'd take a stab at trying to land it for my collection. In the auction, it was listed as untested, and I think I could do an entire video about what that topic means. With the exception of a few scenarios, using the term untested on anything JAMA is usually just code for non-working. So looking at this cosmetically, it was in okay shape, and my assumption was that it probably didn't work but had suicided, much like the CPS 2 hardware that came after it. Basically, the onboard battery dies and the encryption keys that are stored on the board are lost, which then prevents it from booting. Alright, so I made a few bids and I ended up landing the Punisher board for $400. It's not a complete steal really, but it's also not entirely bad considering a working board will sell for double. So it did have the untested label on it in the auction, and I decided to hook it up to see if maybe I could get extremely lucky, and no, not happening. I just get a black screen. In some ways, I'm fine with this outcome though, because that's the same black screen I've seen on suicided CPS 2 boards that I've come across. It would almost be worse if this did boot and had a graphics issue or some other type of problem. Alright, so I'm going to assume this suicided, so I bought two things here to cover my bases, and they do come in a combo package from the site. The Open Key CPS 1 and the Open Key Kabuki. In total with shipping, this cost me just shy of $100, and it would arrive in about a week's time. Now I'm into the board for about $500 though, but that still isn't terrible for a fully working Punisher board, if it can in fact be returned to fully working. So I eventually had to open this up, and to my surprise, it wasn't overly dusty inside. I've seen a lot worse. Now to install the two pieces I just bought with the hopes of resurrecting this board, I first have to remove the two batteries that reside on the board stack. One of those batteries is on the C board, and I had just removed the battery from my other C board when I installed the Darksoft CPS 1 multi a few months ago. This is a pretty easy job, and I don't think most people will struggle with this. Same can be said for the other battery that resides on the side of the stack, the Q battery. Pretty easy to remove if you've done even the most basic desoldering. So at this point I was feeling ambitious, and I decided I'd just recap the entire board. I didn't know if I'd get it all working, but I was feeling optimistic about things and went ahead and did the full recap anyway. Alright, so now to install the Kabuki and Finicky. It's pretty straightforward, no soldering required at all. There are dip switches on the unit that you must set according to your game. In my case, Punisher obviously, and there is a list conveniently printed right on the little board that tells you which switches are on and off. Super easy, but do double check things just to be certain. Once those are set, this installs into the socket where your Kabuki chip is located, and then the Kabuki chip itself plugs in right on top. The OpenKey CPS 1 install is pretty similar. Again, you have to set the dip switches according to the game that you're using this on. The board then plugs into where the C board normally goes, and then the C board plugs in on top like a hat. Again, no soldering required at all. Really, the only soldering that is necessary is the desoldering of the batteries that I talked about earlier. So now at this point, my boards are recapped, batteries are removed, my OpenKey Kabuki and OpenKey CPS 1 are installed. All I have to do is power this up and hope that I was right. And that's a win, guys, and a big one in my opinion. I got lucky here and guessed right. And so I ended up with a nice Capcom Punisher board set for just shy of $500. Not super cheap, but definitely a decent price for this game. So that's it for today, guys. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them down below. I'll leave links for the OpenKey parts that I used from CandyCabClub in the description down below. This is a pretty fun video because it worked out, although I was planning on showing it even if it didn't, just for the sake of the process. But yeah, I'll definitely have some more arcade stuff here shortly. Honestly, I have a lot of things that I'm working on and I want to show them, and I know there's just no way I'm going to get to all of it, but I'll try to pick some of the cooler stuff that is more video friendly, I guess we'll say. So that's really it for today. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you all next time. Later, guys.